Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another weekly Ruckus Games behind the scenes co-working stream. Once again, we are joined by the legendary, the one, the only, Paul Richards himself. Hello, Paul Richards. Wah, wah.
Well, we did a part one already, so you don't have to introduce me. People can go to the pending YouTube video if they want more information on me. Let's just get down to brass tacks, shall we?
Yeah, let's get to the meat and potatoes of it. What are we doing today, Paul?
We've kind of distilled our aliens down to sort of a set of what I call Taco Bell ingredients, right? So Taco Bell, you go in and it's the same loose four things, and they're mixing it up in different ways. They're calling it a chalupa, they're calling it this, that, and the other. But all they're really doing is kind of mixing the cheese, the lettuce, the meat, and the tortilla around, maybe adding olives in or just wrapping it around differently, but it's the same thing. So in the case of a lot of our alien infestation and enemies, we've sort of got a Taco Bell short list of brains, veins, eyes, splats, and teeth. Those are like the main things. It looks like I've blown some of these things out. And again, the why don't we just work over the bare screenshot? We can kind of try to do that. But the reason that again that I use this onion skin method is because it gets it sort of back into the realm of drawing. You can expand on things again. Color pick from what's there and try to create like a light and shadow kind of reproduction of the shot. But in terms of just generating ideas, this gets you into the ballpark a little bit quicker. And then afterwards, if you really want that like primo rendition, you can go in there and like pixel perfect the thing later. So I'm gonna start right off the bat with, since this is the thing in my mind, I'm gonna really chug the bowl here with a really thick kind of again, like thick to thin. We're gonna grow it up, and as we do this, if there's any animators in the group, you'll know that whenever you add corrugation and compression to something, it looks as though it's kind of like settled, kind of like like melty cheese or like a candle drip. And then as something is tensing out, it goes into kind of like stretch mode. And a thing that I try to keep in mind as I draw is this kind of like squash stretch kind of kink kind of quality, where it appears to have physicality, even if it's something that's going to be a static mesh in the game. But so here we have a gross veiny stalk, and we'll maybe put some like little side growths off to it, implying that
girthy guy.
Yeah, already it's starting to kind of take on the look of like a beholder. Here, I just wanted to just touch upon why I made this red. Sometimes I'll whack an adjustment layer mask somewhere in the picture, because once I get sick of drawing on the line portion, you'll see me going back and forth to it. This is just so that I know where the thing starts and stops. When you're working in this kind of like grayscale, fuzzed out onion skin method, things kind of like normalize to gray, and it becomes like, okay, what am I doing? So this hopefully, as we're going, helps you even kind of see where I'm going. But right now, I'm gonna paint into the layer mask, and I'm gonna start to kind of creep some more veins and tendrils down onto the ground. Yeah, we'll do a few of these, right? We'll try to stick and move, and then you'll see that I have like the attention span of a gnat. So I'll go back and forth between designs. Usually, the first thing I do is less inspired, and I need kind of other things to kind of catapult me to a better idea. So some of these are just kind of like this one here is like another one of these is trying to kind of grow and maybe like sprout and escape. And I've added angry chompy mouth up here. Some of our enemies have weird kind of like grimaces and chattering teeth. So I might just quickly whack an adjustment layer, because this is just me trying to kind of find my way through it. And I think last stream I was just like, as soon as you know something is going to be kind of a light element versus a dark element, just go ahead and do something to kind of make it light. And as you're adding light things to the palette, it's like, oh, maybe one would look good here, and that's being done again with just like masks. So you can draw with lines, but you can also sort of draw with pixels and like layer masks. I might do kind of for this next one, and apologies again, I'm going to just be jumping around. I might kind of go with the idea that there's sort of sediment kind of on the ground around the toilet. So I might be using kind of like squishier, sort of like intestinal gack, and trying to think of like, oh, the floor is like maybe partially or like fully coated, and has, like maybe there's a again, like a big puddle welling up around this thing with little like uncomfortable chunks floating in that, which we'll
Yeah.
have to bring into the realm of Alien, so it doesn't look like something else. I don't know how many
Mhm.
like like hardcore designers are in here, but this is a they did a study, I think, called, it was I'm gonna misspell this. It's gonna look like I'm doing something strange, but Booba and Kiki. And Kiki was a like a star, like a violent kind of burst kind of thing, and people were shown the round stuff. Like, think of like Lumpy Space Princess from Adventure Time, and they were able to map the word booba to the round thing and Kiki to the angular thing. And I think last time I was explaining that, like, Scott, my art director, he's a lot of his art is born of angles. So he's like more in like the Kiki section, and I think I'm more in the like booba section. Everything with me is like, voluptuous and round, and but I'm trying to kind of marry that with the other one, because it's like if you do
Yeah.
too much of one thing, it gets boring.
Did you ever use deviant art back in the day? I know it's still a thing, but like
I
when it was
I
like
didn't.
booming.
Yeah, like DeviantArt was where you went if you were like a burgeoning furry, or there's more to it than that. A lot of like Loish and some of these like big name artists got their start there, but no, I was never part of that.
That's where I went to like find fan art for whatever anime my little teenage heart was obsessed with that week.
Did you have a DA account where you posted work as well? Because you draw every once in a while, right, Devin?
I did, yeah. I don't remember what the username was though. I'll have to I'll have to see if I can dig back in my memory banks and find it, because I'm sure there's some pretty embarrassing stuff on there that would be fun to share.
Oh yeah. Well, we've all got a few of those.
Oh yeah.
We haven't done enough veins, right? There's we
Yeah,
haven't. It's not enough of the. We got to get all
we
those
need
Taco
more
Bell ingredients
veins.
in, right?
What about like right in the corner, right to the right of where your mouse is, like a little mouth, like kind of like maybe something went wrong and like some a mouth just kind of like
Oh,
started to formulate there.
you just want there to be like "Ugh,"
Yeah, like
just
chompers, like
just
get too
bubbling up.
close.
Well, that just kind of makes me think that we could do the same thing there. Feed me Seymour.
Feed me some more. We had a question in chat. Rusty asked, "What pieces of media inspired the game's art style and overall vibe the most?" That is actually a perfect question for our art director, Scott Kester.
Yeah, he's in
I think
chat.
he's two for the price of one day.
Hel-
Yeah.
Hello. Sorry, I'm bombing this thing. That's kind of a complicated answer for that. I would say though, when it very first started, now the game. This is a big surprise. I'm sure you're gonna hear. Some things don't end up exactly how you think they will when you start. When we started, one of the key touch points for me was just like Leica films in general. Particularly Paranorman was kind of like the baseline, sort of like that with some Mitchells and the Machines was kind of where my heart started with this, but that was purely kind of from a visual standpoint and less about a thematic one, really. But really, I have this like mood range thing that kind of just talked. It was really built around a lot of the feelings of a lot of old '80s movies, horror movies. It's funny, Paul talking about Ghoulies. That was one of the first films that really scared me as a kid. There's a part where this woman's tongue comes out and wraps around this dude's head. Anyway, and there's that creepy clown thing that comes to life in the bedroom. That thing's still scary looking to me, man. Like that Dracula head, it's like a clown or it terrifies me. But to me, it was less about one particular thing, and it was more about like, how does Ghostbusters make you feel a little bit? Like, how does that, like, what does it feel like to be a kid and be not like scared, but kind of intrigued about stuff? So that's kind of a weird answer. I don't really have a good answer for you. There was no video games, to be perfectly blunt, that inspired anything about the feel of it. I mean, actually, I take that back. the Zombies Ate My Neighbors was kind of a thing that I was like, hey, if I could get something that kind of had a feeling that game had with like the super soakers, which we have super soakers and stuff in the game. Yeah, so that's kind of that, but it wasn't really like a this plus this equals that. It was kind of a menagerie, and most of it was just like, yeah. Anyway, so
it helps that Scott and I are equivalent in age. But Scott, do you remember when I first came here and you were like serving me all these '80s movies that were blind spots? So you had me watch like Invasion from Mars and like what were like
Raiders
like
of
it was
Mars.
Terror Vision was another one.
That's how, like, yeah. There's like I love. This is where Devin and I have a lot, and Paul have a lot of. I love like terrible films, but I like
Yes.
good terrible films. And as a kid growing up, my brother was 7 years older than me. It would be like summertime. My parents are both at work. We would go to the store and rent like 50-cent horror movies at the place, and we'd come home and we'd watch them during the day. Some were good, some were bad. But a lot of that, like rubber monster, practical effect, killer clown kind of stuff, was really kind of where the Blob and a lot of those things is kind of where a lot of this started from. So, kind of extrapolate that as you will. And I have some favorites that really inspired me, but like it's kind of like a menagerie of things. So anyway,
Yeah, it's weird. Like some stuff. See, Scott,
Thanks,
thank you.
Scott.
Some of that stuff stays inside you from when you were like a kid growing up, but then some of it has to kind of be revisited.
Yeah.
So like if you're not like constantly renewing that, like I found that my finger does leave the pulse, and I like it's like
Oh yeah. Well, there are things that I'll say this and then I'll leave. There are movies like Night of the Comet, which is kind of one of my favorite vibe pieces of like maybe all time, if I'm completely honest. I really was striving to have, and if you look at my old reference boards, which this is the funny thing about making reference boards, no one looks at them after like a couple weeks. So you just have this kind of weird, deprecated like thought board of things. But sometimes it helps convey to the team what you're trying to do. But I really was striving and wanted more of a lonely atmosphere and aesthetic, and almost liminal kind of side to things. But like it, as the game progresses, it gets a little more chaotic. It gets a little less lonely. It gets a little bit less desolate. But like so to Paul's point, a lot of times I don't like to go back and specifically revisit something because I'd rather kind of remember how it was. And I think the last thing I would say about this was a little less about trying to like recreate. Like you go into an old house and I could put, to use your Gremlins reference, I could put the chair, the electronic chair like up a thing, and Bill will go, oh, that's from that. But for me, it was less about like making those direct related comparisons to like just tie exactly. But if there's kind of a vibe that kind of comes across. So anyway. All right.
Thanks,
I'll let Paul
Scott.
get back to it. See you guys.
you got a taste of our like spastic interplay. Scott and I are like we're different people in a lot of ways, but I think the reason that our working relationship is so healthy is because we like enough of the same stuff. We have that kind of same frenetic energy, and that's inspiring to be around.
This is a new view. So where's this screenshot taken at?
Either the gym, because this is like an office space here. What is that? What's in the background? There's a fan.
Yeah, looks like an office.
Like
maybe the school.
Yeah, this is definitely the gym. This might have just been a rando back room,
Nice. All right, I was just curious because I was like, where is that from? Blay says, awesome, thank you. A follow-up question. Do you ever find you lose the energy of the original sketch when making follow-up sketches? If so, how do you avoid making them too stiff?
Always and forever is the answer to that question. You're never going to be able to kind of like rival sort of the just doing door frames here, as you can see, because when my hand is doing this, it's contacting the page for the first time, and there's impulses going on in my head that are telling me to do this, and those initial impulses are going to be the ones that carry the most energy. So in terms of preserving that through to the final, if you really want to, you can give a second performance. It seems, not very like efficient to have to redraw a thing a second time. But usually I'm trying to use the bones of what I've got early on it's underneath there. It's and again, onion skinned at a very low opacity, so that's always there as a reminder. And I'm constantly kind of like turning the layers off and on to see as I'm adding things and subtracting them, whether that's like new information or another like coat of paint or like a color pass or something. The on-off state helps me see what's gained and what's lost. And you can always throw something into like a layer mask and get rid of it, or erase it. But it's. I'll tell you some deep game concept art kung fu, which is that usually when we try to break something down and finish it, here I'm just going to draw like a skull. So right now, let me just get the background black right now. Right now, this skull is as direct and stark as it's going to be. And as we add shadow information, we begin to dice up the interior of the skull. So see how these like shapes are being added on? I know a thing or three about skulls, even though it might not seem like it, but as you're working into it, you're basically taking smaller shapes and interrupting the larger surfaces. And what I feel like halts and stiffens a drawing is when the drawing has too many of those little, almost like a mosaic or parts of stained glass, little tiny shapes within the big shapes. And if you can get yourself to not do too much of that, if you can get the eye to move over a space, and this applies to environment art as well, right? You can see that the guys, when they did this, there's places of concentration, but then also places of rest where the eye can kind of like dart along at speed. And the more you interrupt and kind of like coagulate those areas with little things, the stutterier it'll be. It'll lack energy because it will be as if I talked like this versus pausing and the melody in my voice and when I choose to say something else. Does that answer your question? That's the most poetic answer to that question that I can think to give.
That was beautiful. I felt like I was in watching a TED Talk for a moment.
Yeah. Well, before the world kind of turned on its tail, I thought I'd get into art instruction in my later years. If anybody's looking for a private tutor, hit me up, because it's like who knows what the future holds. I may need your money. But yeah, one thing you'll get when you tune into different people on these streams is you'll see people who are really, really invested in craft driven things or like medium driven things. I think Scott on he's very much like media driven. He's referencing lots of games. He knows a lot about a lot of different games and how they work. Whereas like I'm more like craft driven. I want to preach the gospel of drawing and draftsmanship, because that's where I've sunk a lot of my time, put a lot of eggs into that basket over the years. And those of you who follow me in other corners know that I try to bring that energy out into the world to share, because I think it's too good to kind of keep to myself. And as long as I keep that spirit and work with other people who are working from a similar spirit, where it's just like, man, we got good stuff and we just got to share it. We can't contain it. That infectious energy is what you want to be around and what you want to produce.
Exactly. Gringo says, private tutor, can you draw me like one of your French girls?
Oh yeah, we said that we were going to do a butt on the stream, so here you go. Tidy whitey.
Devin, you should censor this when you edit it for YouTube, like pixelate it like it's really, really naughty.
Yeah, okay. We can do that in real time. Too hot. Okay, can you see what it is? No, not anymore. You can't. There you go. If you think it, do it. Because you can always come back and change it later. Because this is, again, it's a non-destructive way of working. The reason I like doing these little veins, by the way, you see, like it's there's a certain jazz to them. The way that they bunch up. Again, it's like it's physical. It's you ever take like a straw and kind of like kink it on itself or whatever.
Yeah.
I love the bonk and the zap. I like this is depending on who you ask, it's a cartoon game. So we're trying to kind of get a little bit of that animated quality in. And to my earlier point, the way that this is bunched up is maybe less expressive. If you wanted a looser expression, you'd open that up a bit. And it doesn't have to. You could zigzag up again, back here, but like having that like long, luxurious straightaway, that kind of keeps some energy in the drawing, right? Like that looks a little bit, it's a little bit zappier. I like to use the terms bonk and zap.
Let's see. Twitch. From Twitch, Datatronic. This might seem like a confusing question. I apologize for that. But I've noticed that Paul seems to, quote, talk with the design. What if this? What if that? Acting more like an inventor than an illustrator. Is it important to have or emulate this playful attitude when creating?
We don't have to, but I think it makes the act of creation less lonely because you're having a dialogue with yourself. I mean, it's either that or you figure it out ahead of time. You create a PureRef board or a Miro board, or your art director gives you like 5 or 6 things to think of, or like a preliminary drawing. But I think on paper, and I you've seen me kind of catapult from one thing to the next, and one thing will kind of organically beget, another. We were talking earlier in the stream about kind of organic growth, and it's apropos that should come up again. To me, it's the way that I work best. I don't know if it's the best way, but I think it is a joyous way that begets joyous results.
Yeah. It's kind of like the concept of looking at the world through a child's eye to kind of like reawaken like your natural curiosity and exploration. I'm probably explaining that idea wrong, but hopefully somebody knows what I'm referencing out there. Well, Paul, we covered a lot today.
I sure did. the bot was still in the thing. I was gonna I was gonna give you one of these just to kind of send us off. Like goodbye, everybody. Bye.
You made a little tween just for us. How sweet.
A little homunculus or whatever. Yeah. Stopping wet from the toilet.
All right, everybody. Well, with that, it's about time for us to head out of here and give Paul back to his glorious work here at Ruckus, making the concept art that goes into our game. Thank you so much for your time again, Paul. We really appreciate having you. And we will have Paula back again next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. So join us again for another hour of fun. And if you guys have any suggestions on something in particular that you would like us to do or that you would like to see from Paul, put some ideas our way.
Great seeing everybody. Thanks again.
Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Goodbye.